These three guns all have different forms of recoil mitigation straight from the factory. The Shadow Systems MR920P, the Canik TTI Combat, and the Bul Armory Tomahawk. The Shadow gun has a carry-style compensator, the Tomahawk has 5 ports at 12 o'clock, and the Canik has a barrel port at the end with a shroud that acts as a barrel weight. In this video, we'll look at comparing each gun to its base model as well as to each other, and we'll wrap it up with some scatterbrain thoughts. Welcome back to the Humble Marksman channel. I'm David, and I have a lot of guns within arm's reach. So way back in the day, I made a video where I teased I would be comparing these guns, and like a good boy, I went out and filmed it back at the end of April when it was raining. As I sit now in June, I'm just getting around to finishing the video. You know how it is, life gets in the way. Into school year, major match season started, there were a couple product launches and summer vacation. Say all that to say, I have the benefit of retrospection, looking back on all these kind of guns and drawing conclusions. Now, originally I filmed the video to be testing just on the range and have it be an entirely range sort of video, but I decided to take it in a slightly different direction, although we'll be borrowing heavily from that. This video kind of made me begin to see the beginning of the end of kind of the performance carry gun genre. I'm curious if you agree with me when you see the end of the video. But first, a crisp high five to the dads in the audience, and I honor you with this. What do you call a fish with no eyes? Shh. So real quickly, if you want to know more about any of these guns, I have videos for all of these guns on the channel. You can watch them after this one. And if you think my videos suck now, wait till you see the old ones. So starting with the Caniks, this is the Canik TTI Combat, which is about $900 to $950 in the late second quarter of 2024. But it's based largely off of the Canik Mete SFT, which I happen to have here. Now, the big differences going up from this gun to this gun include the upgraded trigger shoe. It's got a slightly shorter slide. You can see that the guns are nearly the same length. The TTI Combat's just a little bit longer, so that means the slide, the moving bit, is a little bit shorter on the Combat. There is enhanced serrations on the gun. The springing is different. There is much more aggressive texture on the front, back, and side straps of the gun. It's got this lovely bronze Cerakote color, but probably most importantly is that the optic system accommodates full-size optics, whereas the Mete only accepts the RMS footprint of optics. It also takes RMRCC, but nobody uses that optic. It's a stupid optic, okay? Moving over to the Bul Armory Tomahawk, there's not like different models. This is the 2023 model. This is the 2024 model. And the big difference is that the 2024 model has the SAS2 traction, which is interesting because now the SAS2s have the Tomahawk front serrations, but you know, whatever. But the big difference is that the new Tomahawks have 5 holes at 12 o'clock running down the barrel. So it is a ported gun and makes it silly fun to shoot. Other than that, the pistols are the same. And the Tomahawk is selling for about $750 at the moment. Moving over to the Shadow Systems guns, the MR920, and this is one of the original MR920s from like 2020, I think. And it is selling now. They used to sell for about $1,000. Now they're selling for about, you can find them as cheap as about $750 if you go on the deal buying websites. Moving up from that is the Shadow Systems MR920P. Basically the same gun, but comes with this carried compensator straight out of the factory, which is pretty cool. And just because I like to party, I pulled the Shadow Systems DR920P, which has a much larger expansion chamber in its compensator, and brought it out as well. This is a full-sized gun. The reason I brought it out is because the other guns are full-size, so I wanted to try the Shadow Systems with the full-size offering and see how it stood up. The MR920P is currently selling for just under $900, like $880, whereas the DR920P is selling for closer to $1,100. And the cheapest gun that we're talking about in this video is the Canik Mete SFT at about $400. All right, so all of that said, I do fear that this video will begin to contribute to the death of this performance concealed carry nation. What that kind of means is all of these guys started up these training companies. They came up with these standards, and if you do standards, then you get these like patches or pins or whatever that is, and that basically got the like self-defense people to start gamifying their approach to concealed carry. And I mean, gamers have always, gamified guns, which is why you have race guns. But there is one thought that I want to stick in your mind as the video ticks on. An advantage is only an advantage if you can exploit it. If you can't exploit it, it ceases to be an advantage. So we'll get started looking at the slow motion video. So starting to look at the Caniks aren't wildly different. Now, since the slide is lighter on the Combat, it does come back faster. And realize, guys, with a compensated pistol, it's not so much the lack of muzzle climb that you're buying, it's the amount of settling in after the recoil stroke, how much oscillation is going on. And you can see that the Combat does recover quicker. Now, the Bul Armory guns, the ports absolutely were the most notable and the biggest difference between the guns shooting. The ported gun is a lot softer to shoot, and it is a lot louder for the shooter, like super loud. But it also recovers much gentler. It's a really good match with the low bore axis of the Tomahawk. And the Shadow System guns, well, they got progressively better. There was less dot climb that was observable, and the guns felt like they settled in faster as we went up the scale on the progressively larger compensators. So now we're going to throw it over to the range footage, and you can kind of experience what I did out on the range. All right, so I'm going to shoot the Canik guns at 7 yards. I'm going to shoot with the Shooter's Global Go timer, which means I can pull up my shots in my phone and use the app and all that great stuff. So here we go. Let's see what we got. All right, that's a pretty good group right there. That's 5 shots in 160. And so first shot's up 0.75, don't count that one, but it's a 22, 22, 21, 20. You can see the group there. It's pretty good. It's roughly the size of a palm at 7 yards, which isn't bad. So Mr. Combat is going to have its work cut out for it. Let's see what happens. And I would say that the group is about the same, slightly worse with the Combat. It did feel easier to control, but that's likely due to the traction. We'll tape them up and try again with the Bul Armory guns. All right, got the Bul Armory guns, got my targets restored. Let's see what happens. All right, so that's bigger than the Canik. Didn't do great on that one. Felt it kind of bounce all over. You can see what's happening there with it. Threw a Charlie, sad day. But let's see, those were roughly 20, 21 splits. Got Mr. Ported Bul Armory. Let's go. Pulled one low. It's because I broke a shot early as I was swinging up. If you look at the 4 shots that came after it, they're right on top of each other, and those shots are 20 to 21, so same cadence, much tighter grouping. You don't have to work at it basically at all with that gun. It's silly fun to shoot. We've got the MR920 with the Shadow guns, going to set the baseline. Let's see how we do here. So not as good as the Canik on holding control. Had one flyer come back high. Splits are 19, 21, 22, 21. So MR920P. I mean, obviously a smaller group. Those not quite as big as a little bit big as like my outstretched hand probably. And let's see, last gun, the DR920P. Where'd you go? There you are. Okay, so that's ridiculous. 4 of them are almost touching. The first one came back high, and then I held it down. No, it didn't come back high. I swung high onto the target, then all 4 of them stacked on top of each other. So that DR920P does nice. All right, Canik Mete. This is where the compensator, I'm hoping, is going to pay dividends, but I'm going to shoot at a pace where I think I can shoot all alphas with the gun and see whatever that's going to get us. So here we go. Okay, that was a 293. First shot was a 92. The splits were a 50, 50, 48, 53 for 293 total. I'm willing to bet, depending on how that 0 is on that dot, they're all close together. Looks like the 0 is a little bit high for this ammo. but it's going to be a pretty tight grouping. So Mr. Combat, let's go. Definitely felt like I could run the trigger faster. It was a 285, so not a big difference, but I think my first shot was slower. So it's a 106, so about nearly 2/10 on that. 44, 42, 46, 47. So that's roughly a 10% increase in trigger speed. All right, we got the Bul Armory guns. Hopefully the 0 on this dot is good. Probably should have checked those before doing the video. So look for grouping, don't look for placement on this. But here we go now. Okay, that was a 268. Those are 42 split, 44 split, 45, 44. So already pretty sporty, a little bit quicker without the compensator than the Canik. First shot's a 0.93. Here we go. That was so easy. The dot doesn't lift off the head box of the target. I'll show you what the dot looks like behind the camera, but that was insane. Let's go look at those hits and see how it did. But the splits on that was a 42, 42, 39, 39. So I was still running them not quite 10% faster with the ports. It's much louder as the shooter, by the way, but it definitely felt pretty easy. Let's go MR920P. All right, 293. Wow, that's the same time as the other gun. That's a 99 presentation, 55 split, 47 split, 46 split, 46 split. MR920P. All right, some of those are going to be high. My hold migrated up on that, but that was much easier. That's a 40, a 45, 37, 39. So easy 10% pickup in the speed on the gun with similar levels of control. All right, DR920P, let's see how it does. It's even easier. I would say I'm gonna have to shoot the Bul Armory and this head to head because I would say they're pretty comparable. But let's look at those splits. That's a 38, 37, 39, and a 40 at 25 yards. Now let's go look at the hits. So we're back at 25 still. We're going to shoot the guns back to back to back to see how they do. I guess we'll start with Mr. Combat. The Terran Combat. Canik Combat. All right. See how that looks and feels. Okay, looking, feeling good. Here we go. All right, the last shot was down and right. I saw it on the dot as it broke. It's a 258 with a 0.95 first shot. And that is going to be a 40 split, 40 split, 41, 42. Not bad. That was so easy. It's so loud as the shooter, but it's so easy. A 252, 103 first shot, 34 split, 39, 37, 39. A little bit quicker on the trigger. And we'll end with Mr. Shadow Systems. Okay, 238. Not as loud as the Bul, but similar results. It's an 88 presentation, 35 split, 38, 38, 39. What does all that show us? It shows us that I shot the $400 gun about as well as any of the more expensive guns on the table. That's not the gun that I necessarily enjoyed shooting most. The two guns that I enjoyed shooting the most were the Bul Armory Tomahawk with the ports, like this gun is silly soft shooting, and the Shadow Systems DR920P. This big old compensator does make the gun just very gentle to shoot. I really like guns that are like this that make the recoil stroke feel faster and lighter, which both of these do, and I enjoyed it over the base models of the guns. With the 7-yard targets, there wasn't a huge difference in what went on, but at 25 yards, you could see that I had sort of a false confidence with the compensated guns, where I was shooting about 10% faster and realized 10% faster went from about 45 splits with the non-compensated guns down to about 40 splits. And a split is kind of the increment of time, and I was using the shooter's global go timer to get at what those splits actually were. But that 10% of speed basically compromised the amount of care I was taking on the sights, and as a result, I was throwing a few more Charlies shooting faster. In a game like USPSA, that's probably okay, but when you're trying to be accountable for your hits and stop threats, I don't know that that necessarily is a good thing. So is an advantage that you cannot exploit truly an advantage? And I say that not so much in the gaming side of the house. Yes, it's an advantage. Yes, try and exploit it. But on the serious side of the house, I'm not sure that it's paying the bills quite like it does on the practical shooting side. If I had to pick just one gun out of this whole lineup to actually, kind of do it all with, it would be the Shadow Systems MR920P, simply because it is a compact grip version of the gun that actually is suitable for carrying, and it shoots like a bigger gun. Pleasant enough to shoot. Now, don't get me wrong, the Canik gun and the Bul Armory guns are super enjoyable to shoot as well. They're just so big that it would be difficult to carry them. They have more aggressive grip textures on the sides, so they'd be less pleasant to carry. They're excellent range guns, but if I had to give it the nod to a do-all gun, it's probably going to be the Shadow Systems gun amongst this lineup, because it's a carry gun. It's more suitable for carry, but it still shoots nice. So that's kind of the thought that I want to leave you with as we kind of move on from the video is, does the advantage of the compensators really make sense in a practical context beyond competitive shooting? Because realistically, you're not going to be shooting predictively like I was shooting in the 25-yard drill. You're going to be shooting reactively and letting the sight picture resolve before firing each other shot. At 7 yards, you're going to grip it and rip it and rely on recoil management if you were to engage something that close. But at that distance, the compensators weren't really doing a ton to improve that. So given the data that you've seen here and your own experience, where does that leave you on it? Sound off in the comments. As always, I appreciate you guys, and I'll catch you on the next one.